Hello, everybody, and a very good morning. My name is Don Arleth, and you're watching World Talks on TVP World. As the UN General Assembly convenes on Monday in New York, an emergency meeting of the Security Council will be held at Estonia's request following Friday's violation of its airspace by Russian MiG-31 fighter jets. This comes as Article 4 consultations with NATO members will also take place this week at the request of Estonia. And now joining me to discuss how best to deter Russia from further aggressive provocations is Emil Kastehelmi, military expert at the Blackbird Group. Hello, and thank you so much for joining us this morning on World Talks.
Hello, and thank you for having me.
Yes, now Estonia requested an emergency UN Security Council meeting after 3 Russian MiG-31 jets violated its airspace. From your perspective, what was Moscow's intention behind this 12-minute incursion?
Well, there's various kinds of possible goals with what the Russians may want to do with this kind of provocation. Well, pretty much, as I said, one thing is political messaging. It is a provocation, and it is pretty much in line with other things we've seen during the last weeks, months, years even, of the increasing Russian hostile attitude towards NATO and other Western countries. But then again, probably there's also some technical aspects here. They likely want to test the reaction time, the readiness of NATO aviation, and so on and so on. So there's probably various things happening here, but especially as the violation was 12 minutes long, it's clear that there's also political messaging here, and they want to see also not just how they react at a technical base, but also like what is the political reaction.
Yeah, and considering that it was 12 minutes, do you think that this demonstrates just the vulnerability, that this could be the most vulnerable point on NATO's eastern flank there in the skies above and near Estonia?
Well, that is one important direction, of course, but if we look at this case, this singular case, situations must always be viewed on a case by case basis anyway. So this violation of Estonian airspace was provocative, but the fighters were flying right on the border at the sea, and the air forces of other countries were ready to respond quickly. So there was nothing in the situation that was like extremely risky at this point. However, of course, this area it requires a lot of NATO resources, especially as the hostilities continue and the risks of escalation grow every year in the current unfortunate situation.
Over the weekend, we had as our guest General Ben Hodges. He said that the actions are not a mistake, but deliberate tests of NATO's resolve. Do you agree? Do you think that, or how exactly do you think that Estonia and its allies should respond in the future to avoid appearing weak?
Yes, I agree with the general that this was deliberate. It really depends on the situation. As I said, the thing that we now have seen. It didn't really require Estonia or other participating countries to initiate independent and immediate countermeasures. So, for example, there's been talks of shooting Russian jets down. That would be a major change in the current policy, and it can't really be decided quickly by singular pilots. It needs to be accepted from a higher policy level. And then also, when we're talking about shooting jets down, we need to remember that everything that goes up also comes down. So if the assessed risks posed by Russian jet is relatively low, shooting it down can actually cause more risks. For example, for the civilians on the ground, as heavy debris can crash there and then even kill people. So there's a lot of risks always associated. But then again, the response needs to be likely heavier than it has been now, because as we've seen, Russia just continues to do all kinds of violations, and they're becoming more serious, as we saw in Poland, as we saw now in Estonia.
Estonia has called for Article 4 consultations. Of course, this is the second time since the incursion of Polish airspace, earlier in the month, that these Article 4 consultations are taking place over Russian provocations, aggression, whatever you call it. The question now is, this round of consultations, do you think that the alliance will discuss exactly what it will do in the next type of situation that we have, where the option to shoot down a fighter jet is considered? Do you think that that would be the forum for them to decide what exactly to do?
Probably these discussions are a really important part of it. The best thing is that these enable coordinated next steps, and countries haven't really gone rogue. They haven't really done anything dangerous by just themselves. It was really a good call for both Estonia and Poland to invoke Article 4 discussions. So yeah, it is possible, and it's even, I think it may be likely that also the difficult question of shooting Russian assets down may be discussed. But then there's a lot of difficult questions related to that. So like what actually are the red lines? Likely different countries have very different opinions on that, because there's always a lot of countries involved. For example, in the latest situation where the Russians violated Estonia's airspace, there were Italian, Swedish, and Finnish fighter jets participating in the to solve the situation. So as we know, there are various countries operating in their airspace, many countries in NATO with different interests, different viewpoints. So especially shooting something down is likely a difficult question.
Right, and just to follow up on that, do you think that it is more likely that it would be allies that are participating in these NATO police missions? It would be the allies, not necessarily the frontline states like Poland or any of the Baltics, that would actually engage these targets if the decision was made to shoot them down, to avoid any direct conflict or direct provocation from this part of NATO's eastern flank?
It's really difficult to say, because it depends on which countries are operating where with what equipment and so on. So it really depends on the case, depends on the time, location, and situation. And also, of course, it depends on the NATO planning, how they want to go forward with even some of the more radical measures, or if they want to go forward with those. So it's difficult to say,
Yeah.
difficult to give like a detailed answer to this question.
Well, we are in unprecedented times. Well, moving on, President Trump recently said the U.S. would defend Poland and the Baltics if Russia continues to escalate. Now, how reassuring are such statements for Estonia's security, especially given the past debates over NATO's commitments?
Well, it's of course good that such statements are being made, but as we know, there is the risk that it's difficult to say how strong will the actual response be by the US, and especially during Trump administration. So there's various scenarios that could unfold, and also the I'd say the general dynamics of the situation are challenging because it's also constantly evolving, and there's probably a need for all kinds of responses in the future. And I find it likely that we have not seen the worst yet. So it is of course good that all countries are signaling their readiness to defend the eastern NATO states. But then again, I just hope that the commitment stays even in the most difficult situations.
Right. Well, we'll continue to hope for the best, but we should be planning for the worst. Emil Kastehelmi, military expert at Blackbird Group, thank you so much for joining us this morning on World Talks.
Thank you.
And that concludes this edition of World Talks. Thank you for joining us, and stay with us for more here on TVP World.